Hi, Andrew Cuneo here, this time with a historic deck tech. I haven't been playing a ton of historic since the most recent set championship, and a lot of that is because I don't think that really anything has changed since then. The only change has been alchemy, and alchemy added a few cards and it nerfed basically Lunarch Aspirant. Outside of that, I think for top tier historic decks, nothing has really changed very much. I think it's still, you're looking at Arclight Phoenix decks, Cat Oven decks, and some sort of blue decks based around Archmage's Charm. Those would be kind of my picks for the top decks. The one thing that has changed, though, is Inquisitor Captain, which is a new card that it kind of functions like a collected company, but it does some things different. So there's a couple ways to use Inquisitor Captain. A lot of people have built decks that use Inquisitor Captain, and then they try to flicker it with Charming Prince and Soul Herder, and they clone it with Glasspool Mimic and Mirror Image. This is a little bit different approach. This is trying to use Inquisitor Captain to make the Heliod, Soul Warden, Scurry Oak combo more resilient. That is a deck that people played at the last set championship, and it was one of the more popular decks. I don't think it was actually particularly successful, but it's powerful enough that people certainly wanted to register it and wanted to play with it. The one drawback for that deck had always been that there really wasn't a good way to find your Heliods or Scurry Oaks. You could find the Soul Warden part of the combo. You could play with Ranger Captain of Eos to find Soul Warden. You could also use Lunarch Veteran. You could use Prosperous Innkeeper. So the gain of life part was really easy to get. Getting a Scurry Oak and a Heliod was the thing that held you back. You played Collected Company to find it, and then after that, your next best choice was like Fauna Shaman, which really isn't a very good card, so most people didn't even play that. You got some amount of digging through your deck with Trelasarras, but you couldn't really reliably find the combo. So there's this other card that Alchemy has added, the Grizzled Huntmaster, which is a 3-mana 4/3, so it's a Collected Company hit. And then it does this weird ability that there's a million words on this card, but basically what it does is it lets you swap a creature in your hand for a creature in your sideboard. So what I've done is I've moved one copy of Heliod and one copy of Scurry Oak to the sideboard, and there's also one Lunarch Veteran in the sideboard. So you can get whichever combo piece you're missing from the sideboard with the Grizzled Huntmaster. So between that and the fact that the Inquisitor Captain also gives you more chances to find Heliod and Scurry Oak, this deck is much better at finding its combo pieces. So that's kind of the impetus for trying this deck, is basically, can this Heliod combo, which is a pretty good combo, can it be made more consistent with the addition of these alchemy cards? And I think it can. So going over the rest of the deck, there's kind of the usual suspects. One thing, that there's fewer copies of Trelasarra and Voice of the Blessed than there might have been in previous versions, because I needed to cut some things to fit the Huntmaster and the Captain. There's also obviously one fewer Scurry Oak, one fewer Heliod, because those are in the sideboard. Some versions would have played more, like a 4th Skyclave Apparition, but again, there's more of those in the sideboard. So other than that, it's kind of a typical approach. It's just make some room for those, for Huntmaster and Captain. Also, there's an addition, because of the Captain, there's an addition of 4 Glasspool Mimics and a bunch of lands that produce blue mana. That's kind of a typical thing you want to do with the Captain, because the Captain requires you to have 20 or more creatures among your library, hand, and graveyard when it enters the battlefield in order for the trigger to happen. And if you don't play some sort of creature-based land, or, well, dual-face card that's a creature and also a land, so this is sort of functioning as a land in this deck. Certainly if you draw it, you're going to play it as a land a lot of the time, but it just ups the creature count in your deck, so it makes the Captain on more reliably. Also, just hitting a Captain with the Glasspool Mimic allows you a rebuy if your second option isn't something you like, or if you just want to build a bigger board. That's a pretty standard thing for people to do with the Captain, both in Historic and in Alchemy. Outside of that, the mana base is slightly different. There's some blue dual lands to facilitate casting Glasspool Mimic if you draw it. There's also some Forsaken Crossroads. I think it's just a good dual land. Beyond that, let's go over the sideboard of the deck, because it is a kind of silver bullet sideboard because of the Huntmaster. So like I said, there's 3 cards that I think you absolutely want to have in your sideboard. 1 Lunarch Veteran, 1 Heliod, 1 Scurry Oak to facilitate doing the combo with the Grizzled Huntmaster. Then beyond that, I think you clearly want to have a Skyclave Apparition. I think it's the best of the 3 mana exile cards. Definitely put 100% play this over Brutal Cathar in Historic. Also, you can, because you have a little bit blue mana, you can play Deputy of Detention. There are situations where the Deputy of Detention is a better card to get than the Skyclave Apparition. It can exile bigger things. It can exile multiple things. You have a touch of blue mana, so you will be able to cast it. When it comes to sideboarding with this deck, it's going to be a little bit tricky because you may want to board in the Deputy of Detention, but leave 1 Skyclave Apparition, so you always have something to get with the Huntmaster. That's something that I have not completely worked out yet, but it is definitely tricky. Additional targets for the Huntmaster, I have one. It's kind of hard to see. Elder Gargaroth. I think it's worth playing 1 card that's a kind of can just win the game on its own, doesn't rely on doing the combo, just 1 giant creature that is going to dominate the game if your opponent can't kill it. Elder Gargaroth has some flaws in Historic because of the card Unholy Heat, which can deal 6 damage. But if somebody's playing a deck where most of their removal is Fatal Pushes, they're just not going to be able to kill the Gargaroth with a Fatal Push. And also, this card really makes them have Unholy Heat immediately with Delirium, or it's going to take over the game. I think this is the best expensive card to have in your deck. It's a trade-off between what's realistically castable. You're not going to get enough mana to play a 7-drop all that reliably, and what actually wins the game. If you really don't like having this slot be something that's going to get hit by Unholy Heat, I would say, maybe you want a Carnage Tyrant, or maybe you want a Shifting Ceratops if you want something specifically to target blue control decks. This is the only one I've made room in the sideboard for here. There's 1 Yasharn, that's obviously against Cat Oven decks with Mayhem Devil. What else we got? 1 Archon of Absolution, obviously against a White Weenie deck. 1 Scavenging Ooze, which is kind of it's an anti-graveyard card, obviously, but it's also a card that can just take over a game on its own because it does get extremely large in some matchups. So far, I can't say that's one I've really wanted to tutor for at all. So that one, if there's something I really feel I need to fit in the sideboard, that's probably the next card to go. There's 1 Giant Killer to give you a removal spell that you can get. The only thing this card really has for it is it's a way to kill Serra's Emissary. If somebody puts a Serra's Emissary on creature, you're no longer just doomed. You have a way in your main deck you can get out of that situation. 1 Rest in Peace. I like having... Rest in Peace is a good card. I think the first one gives you a lot of value because you never have the situation where you draw 2. So, if it's a good card in the matchup, this is a good card to draw. You don't have to worry about, well, how many of these do I really want in my deck? Because this is, at its heart, a combo deck. You can't sideboard a ton of cards in any matchup because you're diluting your deck too much, and if you draw a hand that's like 2 Rest in Pieces, a Soul Warden, and a Scurry Oak, and some lands, you better hope that the Rest in Peace is going to win the game for you because, a 1-1 and a 1-2 is not a respectable clock at all. So you're really banking on Rest in Peace winning 100% of the time. That's why there's only 1 Rest in Peace, so you can't draw multiple in a game because you don't want to dilute your deck of combo pieces. You want to still win through your combo, generally. Then the other really important thing in the sideboard of this deck, and I think this goes for any Inquisitor Captain deck, whether you're playing this style of deck or you're playing a Urian deck, you have to play with cards that can kill Hushbringer, which stops ETB abilities from working. You also have to play with cards that can kill Strict Proctor. Same thing. And the Strict Proctor, I learned this the hard way, it stops the ETB abilities of enchantments and artifact-based removal. So I had Baffling Ends for a while over these Fateful Absences, but if you want to Baffling End a Strict Proctor, it requires 4 mana to do that. It requires 3 mana to hit it with a Portable Hole, so I've chosen to play Fateful Absence and Portable Hole as my removal spells. Also, Fateful Absence is nice because it hits 5 mana to Fairy, it hits Korvald. It definitely hits a lot of things that Baffling End doesn't hit. It gives your opponent a card back, but you're going to get to kill the permanent you want to kill most of the time with this. So that's the deck. Let's go ahead and check out some games and see how the combo works. I'm paired against the Tarrasque. I think my Infinite Life combo will be good against a hard cast Tarrasque. So I've got 2 of the 3 pieces to the combo. I'm just missing a Scurry Oak. I don't have double white, but I do have a treasure from the Innkeeper, so I'm going to go ahead and keep this. You don't have to win by getting Innkeeper, Heliod, Scurry Oak. This deck is also capable of just winning by making a big Voice of the Blessed, or just growing your creatures large with Heliod. Alright, so this appears to be a blue-white control deck, would be my guess. So this is definitely a place where I would like to have a Ceratops to go get right now. I think I'm going to hold off on trying to use my treasure to play the Inquisitor Captain. They could have access to Censor. They could also have Archmage's Charm. Let's get rid of a Soul Warden. I think I don't want to exile them from my deck. It's a little bit dodgy exiling things from your deck with this deck because you are speeding yourself towards the point where the Inquisitor Captain is no longer going to work if you're exiling too many creatures. All right, now I have the combo. This is not a matchup where the combo is at its best, but this at least makes my cards more threatening. So this is going to be a Lotus Field deck that is attempting to use Blood Sun to cheat Lotus Field into play. It's likely that they're also going to have a Strict Proctor in their deck as well. I guess I'll just go for the combo. This is one of those things that's kind of awkward. In theory, their deck may not be able to beat Infinite Life. Probably they can if they have a 5-mana Teferi. Stifle. Okay. It's not particularly scary. So now I'll be able to get the Voice of the Blessed big enough that it will have Indestructible. So they're going to get to take another turn, but they're going to have to deal with a giant Scurry Oak, a giant Voice of the Blessed that's also Indestructible, and an army of squirrels that will kill them. So probably this is enough to win. They would need something truly exceptional. There isn't a card like Terminus in Historic that would get them out of this. I guess they could have, if they just have Lotus Field plus Shadow's Verdict, which would be an exceptionally bizarre way to have constructed their deck. That would be a way out. But in the Jeskai colors, I don't think there's a single card that can get them out of this. So I definitely want to get this thing to the point that it's indestructible. I should probably maybe make it a 17/17, because that way I would kill them through a Lightning Helix if somehow I don't deal damage this turn with my creatures. I'm definitely going to kill Narset, so I'm dealing 1 point of damage to put them to 13. I guess I'll make both the Scurry Oak and the Voice of the Blessed 17 power, and then I'll stop. They haven't conceded here, and it's possible that their deck has a way out of this. If you're going to play this deck, you should definitely expect to have to play this out at times.
This was overwhelming.
It doesn't seem like the start of a winning turn, but it could be anything. Maybe they have some sort of combo that they can just kill me. I'm not really sure why they have Valakut Awakening in their deck. They hit a Lotus Field, so that's probably one of the better things that could hit. All right, against a control deck, I definitely want Fateful Absence. I think I probably want Portable Hole because I'm worried about Strict Proctor. I think Lunarch Veteran is just a straight up upgrade to Soul Warden, so at a minimum I'm going to swap those. I don't think I really want any of my other cards, so the question is, what of these cards isn't very good? I think the answer is Skyclave Apparition is not particularly good. Maybe trim one of those life gain guys. I think this is an area where my sideboard or my deck could probably stand to be strengthened. So maybe trying to fit a Shifting Ceratops into the sideboard would be a start. Not the strongest hand in the world, but I do have a 2-drop and I have Collected Company, which is a excellent 4-mana card in this matchup. Well, I don't have anything I don't have a creature in my hand, so I can't go do anything with the Huntmaster, but I got some beatdowns going on. This will allow me to sit back on the company. I've drawn a few too many lands. So in the past, before these decks added blue, they played Castle Ardenvale, which I guess in theory would help you summon control matchups, but it wouldn't even do anything once Bloodsun is in play. Alright. This is kind of like their anti-combo card, but it's not very good against my combo. I guess I'll try to company. It seems like seems like this is definitely going to get countered, but I don't know that Fateful Absencing the Gideon there and letting them draw a card is really that good of an option. That was not a good turn to draw my 8th land. Probably I can't win at this point.
Focused and just with thoughtfulness before action. I have just the trick for this.
Anticipate, weird. I don't know what's going on with having that card in the deck. Alright. Well, I'll give them that one. They can just memory next turn. Not that they even need to. I couldn't beat the cards that they had in their hand, much less them getting a new hand. Do any of these things improve my chances of winning? I don't think I want to just have Scavenging Ooze in my deck as just a beatdown creature. Maybe it's better than the Voice of the Blessed. Probably not even, though. The Voice of the Blessed at least can get big enough to live through Wraths, like what happened in the first game. The Scavenging Ooze exiling their commit memory is really, really narrow. This would be a great hand if I had 2 lands. I think 1 land is not enough. I keep. Guess I'm going to bottom Portable Hole. That's a tough one. I didn't see any targets for it. It was between that and the Glasspool Mimic. I haven't seen any censors yet out of this deck, so I'm just going to go ahead and jam the Captain this turn. Most people are much less a fan of playing censor than I am in Historic. Huntmaster would be a good hit here. Heliod would be a good hit. That's fine. We traded Tail's End for like half of the card. They whiffed on lands. I think I'm still just going to play Heliod, though. If I play the Trelasarra and they draw the 3rd land and it turns out they have Deafening Clarion or Anger of the Gods in their hand, it's really bad for me. So I'm going to grow the Trelasarra to a 5/5 this turn. 6/6 actually. I don't think there's any reason to believe I would ever need to cast a second Heliod in this matchup. So I can safely exile this to the Huntmaster. I'm also kind of unlikely to ever really want to cast a Glasspool Mimic. But I also don't really think I need a land, so we'll just go with The exciting play of nothing. It would be nice to have a creature I could have gotten here that would be good against Day of Judgment. Or Wrath of God. So if I hit a white card, the Heliod becomes alive, and I can attack with it, I believe. Yeah. It felt like a pretty bad matchup for this deck, but obviously you can beat a control deck when they stumble on 2 land. On the draw, this is definitely a clunky hand. I think I'm going to keep, in part just because they mulliganed. So they're less likely to have a hand that really punishes the problem with this hand. The problem with this hand is that it's just too slow. Its first play is on turn 3. But certainly against a person who is a discard deck, not mulliganing is nice. That's the kind of decision where if I'd known exactly what deck they're playing, I might have decided differently. Given that they're playing some sort of black discard deck, I'm 100% happy that I kept my hand. There was no way to know that until it happened, though. So I need double green. And I guess I want double white more than I want blue mana. Trying to cast Glasspool Mimic is not often going to be a great play. It does have the nice property of just being a land you can pitch to the Huntmaster, in addition to being a land you can hit with the Captain. This is a black-red deck. I'm going to definitely pitch the Glasspool Mimic. I think I just want to get a high-impact card. But I again feel a little bit like my deck is kind of short on them. Maybe I'll just get Scavenging Ooze. They're probably playing a Croxa deck. I think it's between Scavenging Ooze, Elder Gargaroth. I can maybe get Yasharn. I only have 1 basic Plains in my deck, so it's not like getting Yasharn gives me a ton of value. It's just a 4/4. Alright, I'm feeling kind of better about my decision to get Scavenging Ooze. That doesn't make a ton of sense. They could have just minus to kill this and gotten a 3/3. This is a mistake I see a lot of people make on the ladder, where there's this really strong temptation to be like, end of turn, use my Scavenging Ooze, sacking a treasure. There's no reason whatsoever to sack a treasure, end of turn to use a Scavenging Ooze. I can just have access to that exact same play on my turn. And it'll be better for me on my turn, because I'll have a Heliod in play. So we can wait to see how they block. And distribute my +1/+1 counters accordingly. Scavenging Ooze is going to cause me to gain a life, which will put a counter on the Voice of the Blessed. It will also trigger the Heliod, which will allow me to put a counter wherever I like. So I've essentially got 4 +1/+1 counters that I can put on at instant speed. 2 of them have to go on the Voice of the Blessed, but the other 2 I can distribute however I like. Which means they don't really have any good blocks. They could chump the Huntmaster. Definitely going to do that. I think that's enough for now. Oh, I guess I can kill the Chandra, so that's not enough for now. Let's kill the Chandra. I was wrong. I didn't have 4 counters. I forgot to count the Scavenging Ooze counters. I had 6 counters. Alright, so this is a red-black kind of value discard deck. This is the kind of deck that I want to have Rest in Peace for. Also kind of like Portable Hole against the Dreadhorde Arcanist. I think I'm going to leave the Scavenging Ooze on my sideboard just as a card that I can get with the Huntmaster. Does that make a ton of sense? Maybe not. Maybe I should just play this Scavenging Ooze over a Portable Hole. It's kind of unlikely I'll ever be happy to draw 2 Portable Holes in a game. This is also a matchup where probably... I don't know that... I mean, the Lunarch Veteran has the advantage that if it gets discarded, you can play it from the graveyard, but it's not really that big of an advantage because the backside of this is just not that relevant. What cards are weak? I think I'll trim on that. Maybe cut some Voice of the Blessed. I'm kind of preserving my curve in the same way. I boarded in a 1-drop and 2 2-drops, and that's what I've taken out. I think the key to beating this red-black deck really is you want to make your deck have as many high-impact cards as you can. So you might think, okay, maybe I should just board in Elder Gargaroth, and honestly, maybe I should. It's probably a better card than the Voice of the Blessed. But if I do that, I don't have it as a target for the Huntmaster. The more I've played these matches, the more I think that I probably want to have a card like Carnage Tyrant in the sideboard, just so that I can have one thing that I never really want to have it in my deck, but it's just a great card to get with Huntmaster. The Huntmaster exiles the card, so it's not really a combo with Lunarch Veteran, as much as I would like it to be. The reason that it exiles is it would just be kind of ridiculous as a reanimator card if it allowed you to just put the creature in the graveyard, and then you could just go and get a reanimation creature, like the Priest of Fellrights. That would probably be good enough to actually make a deck. I'm not giving myself access to the fastest possible company, but I wanted to make my Trelasarra a threat as quickly as possible. Especially given that they started out with Shock Thoughtseize. They've already done 4 damage to themselves. So I might as well get a good clock going. I guess I'm going to play the Scurry Oak this turn. Make the Trelasarra bigger. This is a spot where I chose to shock, even though I don't necessarily need to shock. And the reason I did that is I'm so likely to shock next turn with the company that I might as well not give away information about my hand. Just going to make a bold attack with the Scurry Oak and just hope that it hits. If they block, if they double block, I need to hit 2 things. So that's a little bit unlikely to happen. I could also just company now and see if I hit Heliod plus another creature. Yeah, let's try it. Hey, I'm lucky. It's like perfect. So I needed the second creature there to cause me to gain life to start the loop, because Heliod doesn't come into play as a creature when I don't have sufficient devotion. If I had to guess, this is going to be a blue-white auras deck. Yeah, looks like it. Doesn't make a ton of sense to trade here. I'm never really going to be doing anything that would cause the Selfless Savior's ability to do anything. And the Soul Warden's going to gain me more than 1 life a turn. Just sitting in play. So this is, I'm not going to kill them next turn, but I'll probably make it so they can't win next turn. If they don't have a card that interacts with Scurry Oak. Which they probably do not. Their hand seems like it's probably terrible. If their turn 3 was pickable Urus, like they might have, they probably have at least 1 more SRAM, at least 1 more land would be my guess. Maybe some sort of protection spell, but whatever instance they're likely to have in their hand, they obviously don't do anything about Scurry Oak. Alright, that was an easy win. So this is the kind of matchup where 100% you need to be boarding in cards that deal with Hushbringer. That blue-white deck has really picked up in popularity specifically because they are good at... It's a good deck for Hushbringer. So I would guess that the opponent's probably going to board in 4. Skyclave Apparition is also an excellent card in the matchup, just because it can get rid of Core Spirit Dancer. I think that the worst cards in this matchup are probably the Lunarch Veteran. I wind up cutting one of those in the sideboard games a lot, because the sideboard games you need to be a little bit more interactive and a lot less about your linear combo. I also wind up just cutting the random Grizzly Bear, a Johnny's Pridemate variants, a lot as well. So how many creatures do I have now? 31. So I still have a really healthy creature count with the Captain, but remember the Captain doesn't count itself. So I have 27 creatures. And remember that as the game progresses, you're going to build up creatures in play. you might discard creatures to a Grizzled Huntmaster, and they get, well, you don't discard them, they get exiled, which I guess you're getting a replacement creature, but you might get a replacement creature that costs 4 or more. It's just something to keep in mind as the game progresses, that it is possible for the captains to stop working. It's not very likely, given that I do have a ton of creatures. Do I want to just use my portable hole? I think I do. And given that I'm going to do that, I guess I'll play the Innkeeper as well. This could wind up working out really badly if they have a Hushbringer, but if they don't have a Hushbringer, I'm going to be very happy to have done it because it should slow them down substantially. They do have a Hushbringer. Now I feel bad. Yeah, this worked out about as badly as something could work out. One disadvantage to having Fateful Absence as one of the cards I'm boarding in is it is bad against the Selfless Savior. This has probably become a game I just cannot win. I probably just need to draw my other portable hole off the top of my deck immediately, or I'm going to lose. Just not a very good spot to be in. Guess I can play one more turn. That seems like a completely insane block by my opponent. Like, were they really worried about taking 1 damage? I mean, they're probably thinking there aren't many cards that they can protect with the Selfless Savior, but if that's the case, why is it still in their deck? So they did make it, so now I can draw Fateful Absence and it might do something. Probably I'm already too far behind for it to even matter if I draw Fateful Absence this turn. Alright, that's not going to do it. So that is one of the real downsides of this deck, is you do lose pretty badly to Unanswered Hushbringer or Strict Proctor. Alright, 2 portable holes this time. It should be more than enough for me to succeed. Pretty awkward land situation. But I am potentially going to curve straight into having a shot of hitting Heliod with Inquisitor Captain. And it just winning. SRAM. I think I'll play for the upside of giving myself a shot to win. It uses my mana so inefficiently if I just play a portable hole instead of a 3-drop. So the captain can hit Heliod, which is just going to win the game. It could also hit Skyclave Apparition, which would be excellent. Oh, I stacked it wrong. Oh, I'm terrible. I needed to stack the evolve trigger in the other order. That was a really, really bad mistake to make. We can safely chump block this thing. I think I'm going to win anyway because my hand is great. But that was a really easy way to turn a win into a loss. I guess I'm still in danger of losing. I could have played my last turn differently too. I could have just attacked with the Inquisitor Captain. I guess that wouldn't have done that much though. Yeah, this was a punt. This game was a punt. They have another protection spell, I lose. Or they just have another Hushbringer, I lose. Alright, I lose. This was a straight up just bad play on my part. To lose this one. I don't think there's... I guess I can... Is there any way I could win this game? So for people who weren't clear, when I said I punted, there's a setting in auto order triggered abilities, which I've turned off. I would recommend if you're trying to play competitively, you should always have that turned off. And with this deck in particular, when you have the Scurry Oak in play and you're trying to use the Inquisitor Captain to dig for a missing piece to set up the combo, you want to put the Evolve trigger on the stack first and then resolve the Captain trigger, because you want the Evolve trigger to happen after you have the combo in play, because the Evolve trigger puts a counter on the Scurry Oak, and that generates a squirrel, and then the squirrel will start your loop. pretty much nothing I can draw at this point. I can't beat Luris Selfless Savior the way my deck is with the double Hushringers in play. This scenario is definitely an argument for having Declaration in Stone over Fateful Absence. If this is the matchup you care the most about, you should 100% make that swap. If instead you want to be able to beat Teferi Heliod Dominaria, you probably want to play Fateful Absence. So I hope you guys, well, at a minimum, I hope you learned a minor trick about how to play this deck that I certainly still need to learn, because that was a horrible way to lose a game. But I'm going to leave it in the video, and I hope you guys all enjoy watching me suffer. If you did, please remember to like the video and subscribe. And I've noticed I've been getting a lot of comments. I do read them all, and I appreciate all the feedback, and I'm definitely trying to make the channel as good as I possibly can. So it really, I'm happy to see that a lot of people have posted that they think it's really helping them. So thanks to all the people who are commenting, and I hope you continue to enjoy the videos.